Joe, it was reported yesterday that Arch Manning, the second string backup quarterback for the Texas Longhorns, even though he does have two or at least one Hall of Fame uncle, everybody knows who Arch Manning is, has decided to opt out the college football 25 game. Your thoughts? And let me just add on to this too. He did come out and made somewhat of a statement through ESPN and said that he just wants to be the guy before he opts into the game, which is PR cleanup. But what are your thoughts about Arch Manning deciding not to be in college football 25?
Yeah, Blake, I'm officially sick and tired of talking about him. I'm so unbelievably sick of talking about Arch Manning. It has become the most redundant and overly used headline for talking about players. God forbid the guy doesn't want to be in the video game. I mean, this is so dumb. His reasoning is so stupid. He wants to wait until he's the guy. Like, people aren't excited for the opportunity to use him in the video game. That's a completely different talking point for all this. But who cares? That's my main takeaway in all this. Who cares? I'm tired of talking about him when he hasn't done anything. Just put your name in the game, get the money. It doesn't take any effort from you or anything. Get a free copy of the game. They're not asking you to do a press tour. They're not asking you to do any marketing. You just get a copy of the damn game. You get a $600 check and you move on. Shut the hell up. We don't need any more.
His reasoning was mainly due to the fact that he wanted to focus on football. But like I made the argument last night, how you're putting more attention on this by saying that you're opting out than opting in. You're taking away from football by doing what you did. Okay, if he would have came out and said, which has been his stance, to his credit, Arch Manning's stance has been, I am not taking NIL money. All right, like, I am standing on this principle. I am not taking money. All right, sounds good. I fully understand that. But you're making, and what, just to be honest with you, he has put more eyeballs on himself, not all on his own doing, but this is taken away from, like, we should not be hearing from you. Opt into the game. Nobody would have known. Nobody would have really cared until you came out and made a statement. Like you mentioned, nobody would have said a word. Nobody would have said, oh, Arch Manning is in the game. Nobody would have said anything. So I just look at this, Joe. Are you oh, no, you're not frozen. I would have just looking at this, or I look at this and just say to myself, I think that this is an issue with him, and it's been an issue for a little while. Like, I'm going to stand on these principles, no problem. But don't tell me it's about football when it has nothing to do with football.
Well, this is my whole point why I'm saying I'm sick of talking about him when he hasn't done anything, is that, like you just mentioned here, all he had to do was say yes, take the money, and then move on. There was no extra steps that were going to be asked of him. He was not going to be one of the featured influencers. I mean, they're probably going to use Quinn Ewers instead, or I don't know, maybe there's other members of the Texas team, but it's probably going to be Quinn Ewers. But by him saying I'm focusing on football has provided more attention to him while he's trying to take attention off himself. I don't know if that's because he doesn't have the foresight to understand and realize that when he makes a decision like that people are going to talk about it. If he decided to go in the game, no one would have said, I didn't even consider it. I thought that he was going to opt in. I didn't even think twice about him not appearing in the game. That's what is really confusing for me in all this. But I don't even know what those next steps are, though, Blake. I don't even know what he needs to be doing differently. I just wish he was starting so that this would feel a little bit less weird when we're talking about him.
I don't think it would make it less weird. I think it'd make it more of a problem, because now the stance that he sits on here, okay, if he would not have come out and clarified it, starts a whole nother PR nightmare for college football, which is what they don't want. They don't want a PR nightmare, because let me tell you what would have happened if he wouldn't have came and made a statement today. What would have happened is some proactive, I don't even know if I want to use the political word, but they would have used this as a ploy, a stepping stone to, players should be paid more money from EA Sports like they do in Madden, or however you go about all of that, okay? by him opting out, somebody, if he would not have clarified, they got lucky here. Somebody, you know, and I know because we cover the sport, it's our job in a day in, day out basis. Somebody was about to take that and say, oh, well, no, they wanted he wanted more money. The Mannings wanted more money. And I got to be honest with you, it kind of does seem like that a little. I don't believe that he's taking no NIL money. I am not in the camp that thinks that he is Johnny Two Good Shoes or whatever, however you say it, that he's not taking money and why he's not at Texas or why he's at Texas. I'm not part of that. It puts more bad eyeballs on you and not focusing on what you said you wanted to focus on. Now, here's the truth too. And I hate to say it like this. He's not a normal human being. He's not a normal kid. He's not a normal college football player. And he could have easily just said, hey, man, look, listen, I don't really care. It is what it is. Put me in, put me out. I don't care. And it got blown into this scenario and situation. But because it's him, everybody wants to talk about it. And they've done this ever since he's in high school. Joe, I've told you this multiple times on this show, okay? I've covered the kid. I live in the state of Louisiana. I saw him play more than probably any athlete that I've covered here. And I told you then, I'll tell you now, he's not ready. He's not ready for the spotlight, in my opinion. He's not ready for in-game action. He's going to have a massive offseason here before he can get ready. And I got to tell you something else. Quinn Ewers has gone 2 years with his daughter and not been healthy. We're going to see him this year. We will see him this year.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely likely. I mean, he came into the Big 12 championship game because of Quinn was knocked out very briefly. I think it was just a stinger, but there is a very strong chance that Arch does come onto the field and that we do get to see what he's fully capable of. And I think our expectations, as you're talking about, they're going to be pretty heavily hampered. They're going to be pretty held back. But, he's not going to play as well as I think everybody's assuming that he's going to play. And I think for his own benefit, he should hope that Quinn Ewers is healthy the whole season. He should hope that he does not have to step onto the field.
If he wanted more eyeballs off of him, he should have kept his mouth shut.
Yeah, I should have just said, I'm not into video games. Okay, cool. Whatever. You're a weird kid, but we'll move on.
Well, and not only that, I mean, what's sad in all this, though, is, you have probably and arguably the best PR team that any college kid could have. He's a Manning.
Well,
you mean to tell me that he does, Joe? Omaha Productions is a big deal. Like, I mean, what are we discussing here?
Yeah, but do you really think though that he is like? It sounds like he's the type of person that would deliberately try to avoid using that help and try to act on his own. It sounds like that, Blake, you're talking about here with him not wanting to take NIL money.
Well, he sure as hell brought in both of his uncles when it came to decision time.
That's true.
Okay, true. So I'm not – no, I mean, you've got 60 years of media and being a player. I mean, he's got his grandfather. He's got his uncles that he can lean on. Hey, what do I do? What do you think they would have told him? I mean, Peyton and Eli were both in the game. They would have told him, hey, man, it does not matter. I mean, like, go in, be a college kid, have some fun. I think that and I'll wrap this up at least from the way that I stand from it here. The way that I see this is I think that they're trying too much, or Arch's camp is trying too hard to be a goody two-shoes. Like, live, go to a bar, have some beers.
Well, he's
break. Hold on.
19. He's 19.
I don't give a shit. Break curfew. Be a college kid. Okay. I understand what your last name is, but Peyton was not an angel at Tennessee. There are a lot of things that people speculated about him. I have a couple of people in my family who went to Ole Miss. I'm going to throw this one out to you. There were a lot of local bars that Eli Manning attended during the offseason. It was a foregone conclusion that on Saturday night, you were going to see Eli Manning even during the season after they won a game. Be a kid. And here's another thing, too. What I will say, though, Eli and Peyton didn't have to go through social media like Arch does. Every move that he has to make is calculated. And I will tell you, they need to hire a PR team now. Now. Because
wait. Don't those two things go against one another where you're telling him to live like a normal kid, but then hire
a PR
team
can help him swing if he's at a local bar and he gets called at a local bar.
I guess.
So I'm not joking with this. He's not a normal kid. Remember,
I know. I understand that, but I think that you got to pick a lane here, though. I think you got to pick one or the other. If you're Arch Manning, you either have to go all in on the whole, I have a team around me, I'm going to let them help me make these decisions and chime in on these things, or I'm just going to completely avoid it all, and just go to the bars and be a normal kid. But I mean, that was one of my first thoughts that I wasn't even going to bring up. He feels like a robot. This whole response, him responding to it, it feels like a robot. I'm focused on football.
That's what I'm getting at too. But you also doesn't mean that he doesn't have Joe. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have to have a PR team around him. Nobody has to know that he has a PR team. They could structure everything around him to where we don't even know that this exists.
I think we would know pretty quickly if he had a PR team. I think it's pretty obvious.
Joe, I got a PR team. It's you. Nobody knew about it until I just.
I don't do it. When have I ever released a press release for you? Never once.
You shit all the time.
Yeah, but I've never released a press release for you. I'm not your PR team. But I'm your producer. There's a difference between the two.
Hey, I'm a hide and seek champion, baby. Okay, no one's gonna find me at the local bars.
You're making that up.
No, actually, with married and 2 kids, you are not going to find me at the local bars. All I'm going to say is, man, I think 2 things, in my opinion, can be true there. Live a little, but stop getting the eyeballs on you. Because I will remind you, okay, when the playoffs happened, Quinn Ewers didn't get a question when media availability came out. They all were directed to Arch. If you don't want to be down the lane of Tebow, if you don't want to be down the lane of Kaepernick to some extent, and I get that those are completely different situations, but when you are polarizing, which this kid is, he is, Joe, we're taking our off day to talk about this. If this were anybody else, we wouldn't be doing this. He is polarizing, and I think he's got to live a little bit, but I think that you hit the nail on the head there. He's a little robotic.
Yeah, but minus the PR team thing, I agreed with your take, though. I would like him to just act like a normal kid for once and stop it with the whole, I'm focused on football, I'm waiting until I'm the guy. Like, he sounds like a total hardo. He sounds like the guy in the locker room that you're like, oh, great. Like, Arch wants to come hang out with us later, and he's going to be drinking iced tea and sitting on his phone the whole time. He doesn't sound like a very fun person to be around, and I know I'm making a bit of an assumption there, but the whole robot thing is killing me. And this is why I'm tired of talking about him. He's the most uninteresting story that we've ever had. It's not like at least Marvin Harrison Jr., for an example of somebody who is a father who played, at least like we got to see him play early. He was interesting to at least hear from for the most part when we got to hear from him in any opportunity that he spoke to the media. I'm trying to think of like another good example of somebody else who had a father who played, or a family members who played. My whole point is that if we're going to keep hearing from him and hearing about him,
Bronny James is a heir apparent of Joe. When you ever hear anything about Bronny James?
Well, since he had his whole heart thing, very rarely. It all comes from LeBron.
Which again, I don't mind really. If I'm being honest with you, I mean, I don't really care. You're not hearing from the kid.
Yeah. He hasn't proven anything.
I've got to be real with you. I don't know if Bronny James right now isn't more polarizing than Arch is. At least Bronny James is actually playing.
Well, poorly. He's playing very poorly.
Matter. It doesn't matter if he was worse than me and you on a basketball court. It doesn't matter. You're not hearing about him. You're not hearing from him. Joe, he goes to a press conference, meaning Bronny James. When's the last time you've seen a Bronny James press conference?
Never.
You know why? Because he does have we know this for sure. He does have a PR team around him. The whole hard thing got, squashed for what it was because they had people around him. And quite honestly, good on LeBron for having that PR team around him 24/7. But then there was a thing leaked, a while back. The only thing that they had on Bronny James was he was smoking a joint. His PR team swung that around. Like, hey, it's legal. He can smoke it. I mean, it's.
I mean, that's also. I mean, like that's also something that again, like, be normal. Like you're a 19-year-old kid. Like, who cares? Like, cool, man. He's smoking a joint in California. It's beyond legal here. Somebody catches him doing that. It's not illegal in NCAA terms. Like, I would love to see Arch do something like a normal young man.
What would you do if you found a photo of Arch Manning smoking some pot?
I would immediately change my stance. I'd be all in on Arch. I'd be all in on Arch, but I don't think it's legal in Texas, so
doesn't matter.
It might be a little bit more. I would think it's hilarious, but I think that maybe Texas people might not feel so good about it.
You don't know the vibes in Austin, baby. Austin's a weird place. I mean, look, they welcomed in Joe Rogan. He smokes more pot than the entire state of Texas combined.
That's a good point. All
right. Arch Manning, live a little bit, buddy. We'll see y'all guys soon. We'll see you tomorrow.
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.